All right, let's get into it. What does Elliot Page's ride from Juno to the Umbrella Academy tell us about real-life transformation meeting on-screen storytelling? Spoiler, everything. Hi, I'm Emma, and today I'm feeling inspired by a story of courage and authenticity. Let's do this. So, Elliot Page, Canadian actor, producer, and activist. You know him from Juno, the indie teen dramedy that went nuclear in 2007, from Inception, Christopher Nolan's mind-bending heist in 2010, and from Netflix's The Umbrella Academy, the chaotic superhero family saga that millions binged. He uses he and they pronouns, and he publicly came out as a trans man in 2020. In 2022, his character on Umbrella Academy transitioned to Victor. It was simple, respectful, and honestly, refreshingly low drama. Total vibe. Quick table set for the resume. Page started as a kid actor in Canada on Pit Pony in the late 90s. Hard Candy in 2005 put him on the international map. Juno in 2007 blew the doors off award season. X-Men entries and Inception made him blockbuster-proof. And he's kept one foot in indie drama with films like Tallulah and Close to You, while also producing and directing. Activism is not a side hustle here. It's built in. All right, story time. Years ago, I was at this major city film event. Think red carpet, flashbulbs, that mix of perfume and nerves in the air. Elliot was riding the Juno wave. I somehow ended up right by him near a step and repeat. We exchanged a couple of words. He thanked a volunteer. No audience, no cameras, just a quiet, sincere moment. And I remember thinking, this person is not performing politeness. It felt honest, like there was a center of gravity there that fame wasn't shaking. Flash forward to 2020, when he came out as trans. Suddenly, that private center made public sense. Then, 2021, he becomes the first openly trans man on the cover of Time. Time is the mainstream news magazine that basically signals what the culture is debating. He chose Win Neely, a transgender photographer, to shoot it. That's craft and message aligned. And by 2022, Victor exists on Umbrella Academy. That synergy between life and art. Tell me why that hit like a soft thunderclap. What that taught me. Being true to yourself isn't a grand finale reveal. It's a practice. It's every small choice to live in your skin, even when the industry is like, hey, can you just be marketable and quiet? Elliot said no thanks and kept it pushing. Yas, queen, or king, you get me. Let's zoom out. Elliot Page is a cross-medium unicorn. Film, TV, video games, docs, voice work. Beyond Two Souls in 2013, that's a cinematic PlayStation game from Quantic Dream, a French studio known for interactive dramas. He did full voice and motion capture, which is when an actor's movements are recorded to animate a digital character. Awards followed everywhere. Oscar and BAFTA nominations for Juno, Emmy nods for the doc series Gaycation, and in 2022, a Saturn Award for Umbrella Academy. Saturns are the big genre awards for sci-fi and fantasy. The receipts are real. And that activism thread? Gaycation in 2016 and 2017, co-hosted with Ian Daniel, who's a journalist and filmmaker. They traveled, met LGBTQ communities worldwide, and the show earned Primetime Emmy nominations. In 2019, Page and Daniel co-directed There's Something in the Water, a documentary about environmental racism in Nova Scotia. Environmental racism is when marginalized communities face disproportionate exposure to pollutants. That film is community voices first, celebrity second. That's how you use a platform without centering yourself. And speaking of roots, shout out to Halifax, because his roots matter. Martha Philpotts, his mom, is a teacher. Dennis Page, his dad, a graphic designer. Two creative, grounded parents in Nova Scotia, nurturing a kid who ends up pulling off one of the biggest indie to blockbuster to activist arcs we've seen. You feel that home training in how he moves. On the creative side, he's not just showing up to set. Page Boy Productions launched in 2021. That's his company. And he signed an overall deal with Universal Content Productions to develop projects. He's produced films like Backspot, and with Close to You in 2023, he wrote, produced, and starred. Multi-hyphenate energy. Not me, but me, constantly rooting for that kind of control in Hollywood. Now, the part where the room gets quiet. There's a public allegation that in the late 2000s, Brett Ratner, the Hollywood producer-director who worked on X-Men: The Last Stand, outed Elliot on set when he was around 18. Page wrote about it in 2017, during the height of the Me Too reckoning. Anna Paquin, who's the actor who played Rogue in X-Men, said she heard the comment. It hasn't been adjudicated in court. It remains an allegation. But I'm going to say it. I believe Elliot. Why? Because power protects itself. Hollywood in that era, and frankly still today, can be a hot mess of whispered threats in a Dolby Atmos room. People who speak up risk their careers, their reputations, their sanity. It takes guts to log it publicly. If your instinct is to say, well, where's the proof? Consider how silence is the point of abuse. Break it, and suddenly everyone demands an affidavit. Big yikes. And within that storm, Elliot kept giving us the work. Inception with Christopher Nolan in 2010, Nolan being the British-American director who lives for brainy spectacle. Page delivered the elegant exposition that made the movie sing. In Umbrella Academy, Victor became a watershed mainstream trans character without a very special episode. That's representation that breathes, not lectures. More pop culture stakes. Juno still holds up because the wit is real, but the performance is the anchor. It's the mix of armor and vulnerability, and that same texture shows up in indie gems like Tallulah, with director Sian Heder, who's known for intimate, character-driven stories. You feel a through line. Give Elliot a moral knot, and he'll find the quiet, messy human pulse in it. That's not mid, that's the work. And if you want the culture headline, 2020. He came out, and within a week, Netflix updated his name across every title he'd been in. Netflix is the global streamer that basically sets norms now. That's institutional support at speed. In 2021, Time cover. In 2022, Victor on screen. In 2023, his memoir, Page Boy, lands as a bestseller. That's the publishing world saying, yes, the public wants the deeper story. And in 2025, he even signed the Filmworkers for Palestine Boycott Pledge, which is an industry statement aligning film labor with a human rights stance. Agree or disagree, the point is consistency. The activism isn't decorative. One more curveball I love, he's vegan. PETA, the animal rights organization, once named him one of their sexiest vegetarians. Cute. But beyond that, he keeps doing voice and narration work, like Ark, the animated series in 2024, and documentary narration. It's a portfolio that refuses to be one thing. Hollywood hates that, which is exactly why it works. So what does Elliot Page's journey reveal? That when you risk being yourself, the art often deepens, the audience expands, and the industry has to catch up. Also, that dignity looks really good on a red carpet. Just saying. Okay, pause, because next time we have to talk about another groundbreaker in the LGBTQ community who is low-key owning Hollywood right now. Think awards buzz. Think genre switch-ups. Think style that says, I came to slay. So that's the tea, folks. Remember, embracing who you are is the ultimate glow-up. Later.